Late this afternoon, unreleased audio of Joe Biden and Robert Herr's interview was released, and it is terrible. We're going to listen to some of it. It really throws egg in the face of all the people that were swearing up and down that Joe Biden was sharp as a tack and has never been better. So we'll listen to some of that. We also have news about the tax break bill that did not pass today for multiple reasons. There's talk about the spending was too high. There weren't enough cuts. There's also talk about some of the NFA stuff that we've been discussing here on the show wasn't in there, and there were some brave Republicans that refused to vote because of that. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. We've got some information about the former FBI Director James Comey and his walk on the beach the other day, in which he took pictures of what was, I think it was 8647, which was alleged to be a threat. Now, whether or not you think it's a threat, I think is largely irrelevant. I just like to see the government treating the left the way that they have been treating the right for so long. There's also some Secret Service people talking with Ed Krasenstein, and we'll get into that. Donald Trump the administration was working on a plan to move 1 million Palestinians to Libya. I don't think that will be a good idea, but we will talk about the absolute mess that will create on the left and also in Gaza. And then if we get to it, if we have enough time, there was a prison break in Louisiana. 10 inmates escaped from a New Orleans jail with help from people inside the department. So we'll get to that tonight too. It's a Friday. It's chill. So right now, what I want you guys to do is head on over to Cast Brew Coffee. Actually, no, first smash the like button, share the show with all your friends, tell everyone you know, then head on over to Cast Brew Coffee and buy some coffee. There is a boatload of coffee you can get. Appalachian Nights is still the most popular. We recently had the coffee pods, all right, a new addition to Cast Brew. So if you like to have the Keurig because you don't like to mess around with brewing your own coffee, we've got the pods that are available. You can get Mr. Bocus, Focus with Mr. Bocus. You can get Ian's Caffeine Dream, Ian's Graphene Dream, excuse me. And those are also available in K-Cups. So head on over to Cast Brew Coffee and get yourself some coffee. Then we want you to go to Timcast.com and join the Discord. That's how you get access to the after show where you can call in, talk to us, ask questions of our guest, ask questions of us. You can maybe even get Serge to jump in on something if you talk about like South Africa. He can't help himself when you talk about South Africa. He'll say no for most stuff, but generally he can't help himself when you talk about South Africa. So we're going to talk about this and so much more, but joining us tonight is JT, right? TJ, that's it. I'm sorry. TJ, tell us who you are and what you do.
So thank you guys so much for having me on Timcast. My name is TJ Roberts. The media has called me a protege of U.S. Rep. Thomas Massie, and that is part of what inspired me to run for office. I'm a state representative representing Kentucky, and I am also a constitutional attorney with a crippling addiction of suing tyrannical governments and winning. And I'm a lifelong liberty advocate. You can check me out at votetjr.com or on X at RealTJRoberts.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us.
What's up, friend? Hey, man. What's up, guys? It's Raymond G. Stanley Jr. I'm the resident blue collar here at Timcast. I look forward to talking to the most ferocious gun advocate in America, so they say. Brett.
Yo, guys, what's up? Yes, Brett, normally Pop Culture Crisis, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Rumble, but I'm excited. Anybody who is a protege of Thomas Massie, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start by jumping into this audio from Axios. Exclusive prosecutor's audio shows Biden's memory lapses. So for if you don't remember, amid long, uncomfortable pauses, Joe Biden struggled to recall when his son died, when he left office as vice president, what year Donald Trump was elected, or why he had classified documents he shouldn't have had. According to the audio Axios obtained from his October 2023 interview with special counsel Robert Herr. Axios goes on to say, the newly released recordings of Biden having trouble recalling such details while occasionally slurring words and muttering shed light on why his White House refused to release the recordings last year, as questions mount about his mental acuity. We all know why the administration refused to release this stuff, it's because Biden was basically dead. Everyone in Washington that was a Democrat or in the media was covering for him, and you're going to hear exactly how bad it was right now. So let's see.
There we go.
So during this time, we were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer shot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively looking at?
Well,
Now, he just asked him, where did you keep papers? The question is, where did you keep those papers? And now listen to how his rambling answer goes.
I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying.
Bo
Died in
Biden
2015.
Bo Biden passed away in
May.
2015.
May.
May?
May.
And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were.
He got out of the Senate before he was vice president.
Why is Jill letting him out in public?
Yes.
It's incredible.
Like, it's elder abuse.
So this is the question was about the papers that he had, and he goes all the way back to his time when he got out of the Senate before he became the vice president.
Except the president. I'm not a mean thing to say, but he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. So if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th,
2015.
was it 2015 he died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that
All right, so as you can see or as you can hear, he was an absolute mess, and it makes perfect sense as to why the prosecutor said we don't want to release this because the American people will see that he is just an empty suit. So what does that make you guys feel?
The first thing I thought of was like right after the horrible debate where he floundered, he gave like an energetic speech to, the people who were there off camera. I mean, it wasn't part of the official debate, but it was covered on social media. And they're like, look at him. He's sharp as a tack. He's right on his game. It's weird. Like in that audio, it feels like what happens when you're really, really overtired and you're trying to say enough times until your thoughts actually catch up with what you're trying to say. And it just never gets there. Like if I didn't have an utter disdain for any and all self-serving politicians, I would actually feel bad for him, but I can't really rise to that level.
I'm glad you don't.
Yes.
What do they say? He was an old man who was very nice. That's why they couldn't press charges, something like along that aspect.
Yeah, and that's some of the context behind this. This interview was about whether to pursue charges against Joe Biden for his handling of classified documents after leaving the vice presidency, which, by the way, they actually indicted Donald Trump.
Then they not only indicted him, but they raided his home. FBI agents, armed FBI agents, went to his house and had to deal with the Secret Service and go into his home.
And this was Biden's FBI doing this. This was Biden's DOJ prosecuting Donald Trump.
Well, it was somebody in DC's DOJ, but whether he was actually able to cognitively make that decision is anyone's guess.
Well, I think the tape shows he wasn't cognitively able to make that decision. Well, it just shows if it weren't for double standards, there would be no standards on the left because, one, the vice president has no control over classified documents once they leave office. The president theoretically does. And so, but yet this was, if anything, was a stronger case. But we're seeing exactly why that report said he's senile, he's having cognitive issues, and it would be difficult to prove to a jury that he could even stand trial, let alone be held accountable for these actions. And now we're really seeing why they did not want this tape to come out, because this would have been the end of 2024, as if the debate between President Trump and Biden was not the end of it.
I love that he said they wanted him to run, but the president. Was he talking about Obama or who?
Well, what he was saying is President Obama didn't want him to run because he
Yes.
thought that Hillary Clinton had a better chance. But it's worth noting that, or reminding everyone, this was in October 2023. So this was a full year before the election, obviously in November 2024. And he was absolutely falling apart back then. I assume we're probably mostly in agreement here that he was unfit when he was first elected in 2020. But the idea that there was, again, this is something we've talked about and a lot of people are talking about now, that no one in the administration stood up and said, hey, this has to stop. That Kamala Harris, as the vice president, didn't say we need to invoke the 25th Amendment. And you hear people on the left constantly talking about Donald Trump. Oh, look, he slurred a word, 25th Amendment, and they're just trying, they're grasping at straws. They're desperate because they're failing so badly now. They have nothing to actually offer the American people. But there was no one that was standing up and saying, look, this is a national security issue. We have a president that definitely cannot execute the job. And the entire media establishment didn't do anything. Jake Tapper was poo-pooing people. Now he's got a book admitting it. And there's no repercussions for any of these people.
No, it's the same. It's the same thing that happened with the Hunter Biden laptop, where they kick the can down the road. They don't talk about it. And then 3 years later, when it's no longer politically beneficial for them, suddenly they're like, oh crap, I forgot about that. That was real, wasn't it? That's the same thing. And if you're expecting the media to have any type of morals, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the reason, nobody wanted to report on it. None of the people in his inner circle, none of the cabinet members, because they had the ability to be in charge of what the country was doing. Biden didn't do anything. He was useless. So they were able to run what they wanted to do, run the schemes they wanted to do, while they had a puppet, a dead man walking.
Yeah, I think that is actually true, and I think that a part of the reason why that was so appealing is because you get all of the ability to make decisions that the president has with none of the responsibility, because you can either lay it on Joe Biden's shoulders or more than likely do what they seem to have done, which is kind of just pass the buck around until people stop asking questions.
Which is exactly what people talk about. When you hear the amorphous term of the swamp or the blob, that is in a lot of ways what they're talking about, which is unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats who are using the essential corpse of a sitting president to make decisions that he clearly wasn't able to make himself.
Yeah.
Weekend at Biden's.
Yep.
Pardon me?
Weekend
at Biden's.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate that we didn't have anyone that would, we didn't have anyone in the media or in the establishment that would stand up. But I mean, what's your take on the whole situation as to why no one kind of stood up and said, hey, look, this is an actual problem? Are you in agreement that it was about, just people were afraid of doing it, or do you think that they like the power that they had, or
It was fear from the media. The media knows that they are an arm of the Democrat Party and the Uniparty in Washington, D.C., the endless wars, endless spending establishment, where for the political class, it was two things. One, it was the love of power. Unelected bureaucrats love the ability to just rule by fiat and never have the ability to face the voters. And if you have someone at the helm of the executive who is not making their own decisions, well, if you're part of an alphabet soup agency, there you go. And that's why we need to rein in those agencies as much as humanly possible. We did that in Kentucky. We can do that at the federal level. We got in a REINS Act to bring these guys in and actually get the legislature back involved. But also, there's an element of fear within the political class as well. The Democrat Party is among the most remarkably unimpressive group of people that they've ever been at. They don't have a good successor. They are scrambling to try to find individuals, and they're just trying to manufacture excitement. I've seen it with my own governor, who is a complete joke, who tried to jail churchgoers, including myself, and he doesn't have a shot at the presidency. Kamala Harris clearly didn't have a shot at the presidency. Yeah, so they're trying to rebound a foul that they just cannot truly rebound from because they're a dying party.
So what would why wouldn't Kamala Harris be the one to talk about the 25th Amendment then? Just literally was Nancy Pelosi like, do it and you're done.
She should have. That should have been.
I'm saying like I'm saying like it seems to only benefit her if she does. So if she didn't, was Nancy Pelosi in her here like your career in politics is done if you do this? We need to keep things the way they are right now.
I don't know exactly what her thought process was. If you can ride the coattails of the existing president into office, that's the best, the best option for you. But I think part of the reason is because Joe Biden was likely going to run for president again. And he clearly had made it clear that he was going to, because October 23rd or 2023, like the campaign had already started. So he was already running. So for her to kind of scoot in there and be like, yo, we have to get rid of this guy, at least during the campaign, that would look like it was a grab for power, on her part.
So if it had happened a year earlier, do you think they would have done that?
She should have done it a year earlier, yeah.
If she had any cojones, she would have. But they probably told her, like you're saying, Nancy Pelosi, they're like, shut your mouth.
One of the things that I've heard a lot of people that are in the know talking about Kamala Harris is she has an inability to make hard decisions when it matters. So,
yeah, and I think that's part of why she didn't invoke the 25th Amendment. If you wanted to guarantee that Kamala Harris never became the president, give her a bite at the apple of holding the position of the most powerful person on the planet. The number one way to have guaranteed that she never wins an election would be to give the people a free sample of what living under her would look like.
Yeah.
Well, and there's discussion about what the fallout would be if in America the first female president ended up being unelected.
Yeah.
Which was something that had been discussed in a lot of ways. So, okay, who do you think would be then? So I think that the Republicans still have their own issues going into 2028. I don't think they have a natural successor to Donald Trump in a lot of ways. I think that his kind of personality holds a lot of the core elements together in the America First movement. So if you were to be forced right now to pick who would be successors for both Republicans and Democrats, do you see at least a bad candidate choice for Democrats or somebody sensible for Republicans?
I think Andy Beshear is going to run for president, and there is a higher than 0% chance that he becomes the nominee. And I just want to be clear. He tried to jail churchgoers on Easter Sunday for merely worshiping God.
When was this?
2020.
So
I was one of those churchgoers. I received a prosecution notice on my windshield saying to serve either 2 weeks of house arrest or to go to jail for a year. Had to sue him in federal court, got a unanimous decision out of the Sixth Circuit saying that's unconstitutional. He tried to jail people for protesting his lockdowns. All the while, he's taking part in Black Lives Matter rallies. So viewpoint discrimination. He was just denied qualified immunity for taking a coffee shop owner's food and liquor licenses simply because he criticized him on social media. I mean, this guy is a tyrant to end all tyrants. He refuses to implement the laws of the Commonwealth. He vetoed a bill to ban child gender reassignment surgeries on minors. The guy is as far left as
refused to ban that?
Yeah, he vetoed the bill. Fortunately, here in Kentucky, we have a simple majority veto override requirement. But you can just look at how he acts when we're not in session. He is remarkably unimpressive. He runs off of his dad's coattails because his dad used to be the governor. So I think that he would be one of those people where people look at him and think, this guy has that Mr. Rogers persona. But then when you actually get into his record and you see his actual personality on stage, the corruption levels that he has, he's embroiled right now over ridiculous.
Do you think that a white man has the? Do you think the Democrats would choose another white guy?
they've been choosing white guys from their inception, you know?
I mean,
and
they didn't last time. Actually, the past 2 times they didn't. They chose. Well, no, not past 2. Of the past 3, one was a white woman and one was an African American and Indian, I believe, woman.
Sure.
So
And maybe AOC will go for it in order to try to be the first female president. They might try to do that, but also I just see the way that Bashir is posturing. I know he's going to run. I'm confident AOC is going to run.
Sure, yeah.
She's
Pete Buttigieg?
I mean, Pete Buttigieg is going to run.
That's-
Buttigieg is going to run. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he could because first of all, I don't think that a gay guy can win, and I don't think that. I think Pete Buttigieg is too short. He's like 5'8", 5'9". He's like just a little taller than me. So, and I'm definitely not going to win. But like,
I'd vote
I
for
think.
you, Phil.
Thank you very much. I would never run, and I've said this before. I would say the N-word in public before I would serve in any kind of
You're like, sir,
position.
will you run for
singing
president?
Kanye's
And you just
song.
drop it right there.
I'd be singing.
No.
I'd be singing Kanye's new song as loud as I could. Just make sure that I'm unqualified.
But you might win if you do.
That'd be a great movie plot. Like you just do everything to make it stop, and it just keeps
Just get
working
better.
for you.
And it's just like people are like, man, I
like this guy.
He's got balls. He's good. We
He's
like
short, but no, I think it's gonna be. I think that it's clear that Pete Buttigieg is gonna run. Gavin Newsom's gonna run.
Whitmore, right? Probably.
AOC who?
Whitmore. You think Whitmore's going to run?
Gretchen Whitmore. She might. I don't see her as making it to the top.
Okay.
Top crew.
Gavin Newsom feel like the one who has the most, even with all of California's failures, like does he kind of fit the bill as what they're going to end up going with?
In my opinion, he's the smartest and making the smartest moves because he's trying to walk back the crazy woke stuff. He's walked back his position on gender reassignment surgery, on children telling the school about their gender and hiding that information from parents. He's started that podcast where he's trying to interact with other people. So he's the one making the smart moves. I don't know that translates to people voting for him. And I don't know if the modern Democrat Party will accept a white guy. They're trying to get rid of David Hogg now. And a lot of that is because of the fact that he's a white guy. The process, they said, was messed up, and it was, it had something to do with he's a white guy. That's why they don't want him anymore.
Oh, was that actually about like?
I think it's because he's saying that we need to primary safe Democrats. I think that's the behind the scenes.
Well, then isn't that more of an argument for Gavin Newsom, given that he represents more of an establishment viewpoint than he does the progressive ideas of AOC?
Democrats are in a really tight spot where their base they have to play to their base to get the nomination, and then they have to play to the mainstream, and the base is so far left.
And that's what I was about to say is that the conversations Gavin Newsom is having, I think hurts him. I think it hurts his probability of winning in the primary because the Democrat Party is so far gone that they're not even capable of having conversations with people to the right of Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. They're done. Sunshine is the best disinfectant of delusions, but they don't even have the conversations. They are taking firm positions on 80-20 issues, and they're always on the 20. Always. Every single time. So Newsom's new approach is trying to be a moderate, I think is going to hurt him in the primary.
In the primary, I think you're right. And I don't know how any of the Democrats that could win a primary will win.
Just goes the same way of Bernie in 2016, and you get a Hillary situation 2.0, super delegates, all that business, and then you get Gavin Newsom in there, who starts playing to the base of moderates, but then he can point to like, look at all of my insanely far left policies in California. Don't you love our light rail that never got built?
Yeah,
this is amazing.
I mean, if Gavin Newsom does get the nomination, there is an endless amount of criticism that you can heap on him, whether it be things like unfinished projects like the rail, the homelessness epidemic. There is a decade's worth of Gavin Newsom doing interviews and doing press conferences where he says the homeless epidemic, we're going to end right now. This has got to change for a decade, and it has gotten no better. California has rolling blackouts in the summertime because they stopped having any kind of nuclear. They haven't done what they need to do for their infrastructure. The car, the fuelage mileage standards and stuff.
Gas
make
tax.
gas incredibly expensive. There's all kinds of things that the Republicans can attack Gavin Newsom for that are substantive. Never mind if he has to spend the entire time leading up to the primaries being as far left as the most far left is. You know?
I want to, TJ, can I ask you a quick question? How the F does Kentucky have a Democrat as your governor?
So we have a few issues. So 2027, Andy Beshear will not be the governor. He is term limited out, and that 2027 election cycle will be the first time that we have had statewide elections where the name Beshear is not on the ballot in over half a century. So it is a royalty name.
Okay.
And as I was mentioning about Andy Beshear, he has that Mr. Rogers personality. But yet, you actually look at how he governs, he truly is far left. But as well, we have to own a little bit of the blame as well. Our elections are the year before presidential elections. My side of the aisle, we have a voter turnout problem in off-year even elections, let alone odd-numbered elections where there's no federal races as well. We really need to focus on state and local races as conservatives because that is really where the policies are made.
Is that an issue amongst like Republicans and conservatives in all states? Because it seems like unless Trump's on the ballot, they have a turnout problem.
It's everywhere. And that's the thing, though, is like, and a lot of it is the consulting class. These people love to take in money and get their commissions off of TV ads. But what really wins elections is door knocking. My state house campaign, we knocked over 30,000 doors. And I beat a guy who had held some form of elected office since the year I was born by 50 points. I got 4.2% of the vote. And that was because we had a grassroots campaign doing whatever it took to win on principle. And that's what we need to do is we need to have people who are going out, exciting the base, making sure that they are ready to go, because all too often you see people go in, be a firebrand in the primary, and then moderate themselves. Well, those people who got you across the finish line in the primary, they're going to see that you're shifting on these positions, and they're not going to be as excited to come out. So in 2027, for Kentucky especially, we need someone who is truly going to put liberty at the front when it comes to the governor's election, because I guarantee you that person will win in the general.
It seems like that's one of with all the work Scott Pressler has done. Like one of the things I pointed out, I said, growing up, I don't think I ever remember in my life any type of Republican door knocking campaign before recently. At least not that I had ever seen. I had only ever been visited by people pushing for Democrat candidates. And I think you're 100% right. And like perhaps working on that, at the state level with your own, early vote action, something like that.
Absolutely.
I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, for the most part, and anytime anyone comes to my door, anytime.
You're in Harrisburg?
Yeah.
I did not.
And he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
I've never gotten an R come to my door. Always Dems.
Historically, Democrats do have a better ground game than Republicans.
Yeah.
Is that
Democrats-
partially because of like where they live, like it being cities and being in closer proximity, whereas your average conservative voter is going to be spread out across land?
My personal opinion is that it's a lot because of the type of person that's a Democrat and the type of person that's a Republican.
Oh, that's fair.
Republicans tend to want to do things in the private sector. They want to go and start a business for themselves. They don't tend to think that life happens to them. They feel like they have agency and they can go out and affect the world and do things for themselves and make their lives better. People that are Democrats tend to have the opinion that things happen to them, so the best option for them is to get into some kind of activism to change the world, get into some organization, go into politics. Those kind of ideas tend to be something that Democrats have more often. That's why you see a lot of activists on the Democrat side. Whenever you hear people say, "Oh, I'm an activist," very rarely are they like some kind of liberty activist or whatever. They're generally like an activist for a cause. You get your global warming or your eco people or civil rights or whatever. These are all different types of activists that tend to be on the left, and I think it's a lot because of the inclinations of the personalities. There's a lot of people out there that think blank slate stuff is true. I don't believe it for a second. I think that you are born with the kind of psychological makeup of a conservative or the psychological makeup of a progressive or liberal. Now you can have things happen in your life that'll change that, like getting a real job, and then you're like, oh, paying taxes will change your opinion of that kind of stuff fairly quickly. But generally, like, the inclinations are honestly very strongly dependent on your personality. So we're going to go to this story now. The AP is reporting that the conservatives blocked Trump's big tax break in a bill in a stunning setback. Now, it is a setback to, according to your average conservatives, but the reasons that they have that this bill didn't pass are actually, in my opinion, pretty legitimate, and we'll get into this, but it is actually a very good thing if you are a Second Amendment minded person, at least on the tertiary side. So AP reports Washington, in a setback, House Republicans failed Friday to push their big package of tax breaks and spending cuts through the Budget Committee as a handful of conservatives joined all Democrats in a stunning vote against it. The hard-right lawmakers are insisting on steeper spending cuts to Medicaid and their Biden-era green energy tax breaks, among other changes, before they will give their support to President Donald Trump's beautiful bill. They warned tax cuts alone would pile into the nation's $36 trillion debt. The failed vote, 16-21, stalls for now. House Speaker Mike Johnson's push to have the package approved next week, but the Budget Committee plans to reconvene Sunday to try again. Lawmakers vowed to negotiate into the weekend as Trump is returning to Washington from the Middle East. Something needs to change, and you're not going to get my support, said Representative Chip Roy from Texas. Tallying a whopping 1,116 pages, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, named with a nod to Trump, is teetering at a critical moment. Johnson is determined to resolve the problems with his package that he believes will inject a dose of stability into the wavering economy. Now, it's my opinion that this bill will do very good things for the economy, right? You get tax cuts, but there are a lot of things that they're legitimately critical of, which is, first of all, it is an increase in spending, which is something the Democrats or the Republicans have been saying that they're not going to do. A lot of them have run on the fact that they're not going to increase spending. If you actually do care about the fiscal health of the United States, cuts have to be made. Clearly, there should be reforms to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Those are the big mandatory spending things, but I don't think those are actually addressed in this particular bill. But there does need to be a slowdown of spending. There needs to be cuts. The fact that they are some of the Republicans are putting the brakes on because of the Short Act and the Hearing Protection Act, in my opinion, that's the right move. These are things that should be no-brainers for Republicans. They're low effort and low cost, especially because this will be an omnibus bill. This is going to be a gigantic bill that's going to get passed. And if your constituents don't like it, you can say, well, look, we had to pass this and I didn't put that stuff in there. So it gives them cover. And, honestly, I don't think that this is likely to actually not pass. I think overall it's going to pass. So these changes should get in there, and I do think that it's would be a very good thing for the Republicans to do. What do you think, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, on two fronts. Just today, Moody's dropped the United States AAA credit rating.
Really? Oh, did they? I didn't hear about that.
That just happened today. So our credit worthiness is going down for the first time in my life. Our national debt is rapidly approaching $37 trillion if it's not already there. We have to do something about this if we want future generations to live in an era of prosperity that our prior generations lived in. And the real tax is the spending programs. We can't truly cut enough taxes to bring about American prosperity without significant spending cuts. And, we can just look at what just happened today. That should be a kick in the pants to say it is time to address our spending habits. And I'm going to be level. All gun control is unconstitutional. And the Ways and Means Committee gutted the provisions of this bill that would have helped millions of Americans exercise their basic Second Amendment rights by taking suppressors and short-barreled guns off of the National Firearms Act. Instead, they only got rid of the $200 transfer tax. They didn't even get rid of all of the taxes. You have an annual occupational tax. If you are a dealer or manufacturer, you have a separate tax as well under the NFA. If you're an importer, there's another tax. But also, the NFA is even more dangerous, as my friends at the National Association for Gun Rights points out. It is a database of gun owners. If you have a suppressor like I do, if you have an SBR, you are part of a national database that has all of your information. It has your fingerprints. It is outrageous. And there's about 4.9 million suppressors in circulation right now.
Very much in common use.
Yes.
So it would stand up to the standards under, I think it's Bruin.
Bruin,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
Bruin
sorry
and
for cutting you
Heller.
off, but go ahead.
Yeah, so this bill has the chance to do something truly incredible to protect gun owners and to truly unleash the basic right of self-preservation. And I completely understand why Andrew Clyde and these reps were voting it down. One, there's way too much spending, and two, we're not doing enough to protect gun owners, and that's something that we campaigned on. We campaigned on an absolute adherence to our Constitution, to returning to fiscal sanity. And look, the reality is that the appropriators love going to the Democrats to try to get the votes for it, and I'm glad that people are staying their ground. I'm sure this bill is going to pass, and I hope we can get it to a point where we're actually cutting spending, where we're actually protecting the gun owners. And by the way that we're getting gun owners into this is that the NFA is primarily a tax bill. So thank goodness we found that opportunity to go in and try to gut the NFA, but we need to repeal the whole thing.
Yeah, so if you are interested in making your voice known about this, you can call Speaker Johnson and you can let him know that you want to see the Short Act and the Hearing Protection Act both in the bill. These two particular acts, they'll protect existing gun owners because this doesn't do anything. These don't do anything to prevent people from getting guns or getting their hands on suppressors. Everyone is pretty aware that there are enough guns and there are enough suppressors in the United States that if someone wants to get their hands on them, they can get their hands on them. And it is not common to see anyone using a short barrel rifle or a suppressor in commission of crimes. Everyone knows that the vast majority of crimes that are committed, they're committed with handguns because they're the easiest to conceal. So it's a good idea to call your reps and make sure that they're pushing for this. Or you can call Speaker Johnson's office and be like, hey, this is important to me and to other conservative and pro Second Amendment Americans. Put that in there so that way we can stop throwing regular Americans that are not breaking the law stop throwing them in jail and hassling them and making them go through all kinds of onerous BS just to own firearms that are clearly protected under the Second Amendment. So the blocking of this bill, AP continued to say that with a few votes to spare from his slim majority, the Republicans are trying to pass it over staunch objections of Democrats who slammed the package's big, bad bill, or as Rep. Pramila Jayapal Washington called it, one big, beautiful betrayal. I think that everyone knows that the Democrats are just going to be in lockstep against whatever happens. I'm not sure exactly what they think what kind of changes would make the Democrats sign on to it. But considering that it was 100% of the Democrats, all of the Democrats voted no, I don't think that there is anything that the Republicans can do. Does anyone have a sense of differently, or is this just all partisanship in your opinion?
When was the last time there was a spending bill that didn't fall on partisan lines?
Well, the thing is, I can't answer that off the top of my head, but I do know that, Republicans will step out of line. Clearly the reason this didn't pass is because, Republicans stepped out of line. I think it was like 6 people they said, or 5 people they said decided they weren't going to vote for it. So Republicans do have a mind of their own, but I don't know if there's anything the Republicans can do to get Democrats on board. And I'm wondering if you guys can think of it.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way they can get Democrats on line. They are lock, stock, smoke and barrel, falling in line, doing what they want to do, or doing what they're told to do. As we know, with the Biden still being president and everyone telling him voting for him and supporting him. I also didn't know that it was actually literally called the One Big Beautiful Bill. I thought that was just a A joke? That's hilarious.
And I think that's why
very shocking.
Democrats will never get on it, no matter what's in it, because they are not here for policy at this point. They are here for blood against President Trump and his supporters, and anything that is modeled off of his framing, they're not going to go for it. And that's something that really changed the dynamic. Because up until now, every single spending bill that Mike Johnson has gotten through, he's gotten it through rule suspension and getting Democrats to vote on it. He's gotten Democrats to defect over, while the fiscal hawks, the people like myself who pledged to never vote for a budget that increases the total level of spending, he had to get them. But now he can't get them. He has to get the conservatives on board. And that's a good position for us now.
Before today, it was my inclination to believe that Democrats were going to be a party to this, and the reason is because it is similar to an omnibus bill. You know, they can put their garbage in there. They can
I was going to say, is there anything in there for gender studies in Paraguay? Because if there is, they might be able to push it through.
You know, I was assuming that it was going to be a situation where Democrats would say, oh, well, hey, you know, we'll put this garbage in there, we'll put that garbage in there, and that way we can, you know, hold our nose and vote for it. And that's what I was under the impression happened frequently when it came to these types of bills, where everybody just shoved the junk in that they wanted to get, and everyone else said, well, I don't want to vote for your stuff, but because I'm getting my stuff, I'll go ahead and hold my nose and do it.
You should sneak term limits in there.
I mean, I don't see them doing that. And I'm still of the opinion that term limits are not the fix all that a lot of people
but it
seem
would
to.
help.
I'm not sure.
Then let me ask you guys a question. Then what is if you're talking about, you know, decreasing spending, cutting spending, where do you go first?
So, I mean, I wouldn't take anything off the table. So the overwhelming majority of our spending is in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, National Defense. Look, all three of these
is mandatory spending something that they could affect on this one?
I mean, theoretically, you could crack open anything in the legislative process, but in this stuff, I mean, foreign aid would be the first thing on discretionary spending that I would get rid of. It all needs to go. Another thing, codify the Doge cuts.
Sure, yeah.
That is one of the number one things that people knew was coming. President Trump campaigned on government efficiency, cutting waste, cutting fraud, cutting abuse. The people at Doge are working night and day for a more efficient government to where we can truly get to these cuts, and they're doing great work, but appropriators in Congress are stonewalling them, and sadly, it's people with the same letter next to my name doing it, and it's disgraceful. We need to absolutely make sure that fiscal conservatism is on the ballot in 2026. The people who are going to prevail in the next election cycle are going to be the people who put their foot down and say, we are not selling future generations down the river with endless debt. We need to codify the Doge cuts. Look, there might be people have concerns about Doge, but that we knew this was coming. It needs to get through. We need to get that through. We need to make sure that we are not having over centralization on issues that are fundamentally up to the states. Getting rid of the Department of Education would be something that could go into this bill as well. And the good news is that there's a universal school choice provisions in the bill, but it needs to go even further. Put it in as block grants to the states and ensure that they have to adopt universal school choice programs. That's a huge issue in Kentucky. Our Supreme Court said that school choice is unconstitutional. Parents, it's unconstitutional to decide where your children go to school. Well, the way that the federal government is right now, this is an opportunity to give that in as well. Get rid of these woke DEI programs. Make sure that we're not funding gender studies in Pakistan, which is one thing that we've done. Let's cut the grant that we have in Kentucky. There's a federal grant to study the sex habits of quail while they're high.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Rand Paul exposed that, and ever since he exposed it, they still keep putting it in the budget.
Really? They keep putting it in?
It's still there. It is still there. I mean, these just absolutely nonsensical programs. Just get back to the bare bone basics. What is the legitimate role of government? Protecting life, protecting liberty, protecting property. And just look at the expenditures and just ask yourself, does this expenditure do one of those three things? And if the answer is no, cut it.
I like it. All right, so we're going to move on to this next story here from CNN. Former FBI Director James Comey interviewed by the Secret Service. CNN reports former FBI Director James Comey was interviewed by U.S. Secret Service agents at their Washington, D.C. field office on Friday afternoon, according to law enforcement sources. Comey was interviewed by agents investigating a social media post he posted Thursday showing shells in the sand on a beach spelling out 8647, which has become a popular social media code for removing Trump from the presidency. Well, that's not what the Secret Service is talking to him about. It's not about, they're not talking to him just because it was about removing Trump from the presidency.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in a minute.
Way of removal.
Comey was not in custody and appeared voluntarily, a source said. Trump and fellow Republicans have attacked Comey for the post, demanding an investigation. Comey knew exactly what it meant, Trump said in a Fox News interview. A child knows what it meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that means, that meant assassination. In explaining why he removed the post, Comey wrote on Instagram that he had posted earlier a picture of some seashells I saw today on a beach, which I assumed were a political message. It was expected that Comey will be asked if he intended the message as a threat or to inspire others who might consider an act of violence against Trump, the source said. Ultimately, a decision on whether the case is chargeable as a threat against the president may lie with the U.S. attorney in Washington. Look, it's my sense that this was not actually a threat, but I don't feel bad for Comey getting hauled in to talk to the Secret Service or the FBI, first of all. And second of all, I do think that it's worth noting Donald Trump had two actual attacks on his life during the campaign. There was another person that tried to jump on stage and tried to grab Trump, and I'm not sure exactly what happened to that guy. I don't know if that would count as an attack on his life, but it certainly put his safety into question. There was the May 29th attack on the White House during the riots. So, and then on top of that, it is essentially considered perfectly normal to threaten the president's life on social media or to make those kind of threats, or has been.
There's that
considered
realtor
perfectly-
guy.
What?
The realtor guy who did it from his car, who called for violence against the president.
Oh, yeah, the Secret Service picked him up.
Yeah.
These things are happening regularly. And as former head of the FBI, I think at the very least, saying 8647 is incredibly irresponsible. And I don't have any problem with them dragging him in.
He just thought he was being cool. He's like, hey, guys, look at me. He actually didn't find these. There's no family out there hanging out, going on the beach, having a good time. They're going to decide to write 8647 nice like that in the sand so someone can find him later. He just wanted points. He's like, hey, I'm cool. I said, let's 86-47, and now he's cooler in their eyes. He's just a troll, piece of S.
And in 2022, there were 74 arrests of citizens for threats against President Biden. The number of arrests that have happened over the 8647 post is 0. Mm-hmm. Right now, there's just been questioning by the Secret Service. So the left needs to check their hypocrisy here, because they're the ones who set the precedent here that social media threats are arrestable now. They're the ones who set that precedent. Perhaps they shouldn't have spent the last 4 years weaponizing the government against average Americans. That's just a thought there, is that if we're going to be free speech absolutists, they should have been free speech absolutists too.
Yeah, I mean, look, the FBI was arresting parents for going to PTA meetings or parent-teacher meetings. They were arresting people for trying to go to church. I'm not sure if the FBI was doing that. It was probably local law enforcement. But the left has been doing
They love it.
all that it can do to chill people that have unfavorable opinions from expressing those opinions. And like I said, I don't have any kind of problem with them applying some pressure to Comey about this.
I didn't take it as a threat against the president. From what I understand, that was a term that was used like in Prohibition about sending people out the back of the bar when the cops showed up. But, like you said, turnabout is fair play. Am I really going to lose any sleep over it? Plus, he was the head of the FBI. It's not like he doesn't understand the gravity of his actions. Like, you can't tell me that he's just like some 20-year-old on social media who said something stupid for the first time. No. I'm not going to believe that you're that dumb, and if that means that you have to have a discussion with them about that, then that just seems that you don't understand the weight of your own actions, and I don't buy that.
Yeah, I think he knows full well exactly what he was doing. And again, I don't I'm not of the opinion that he was saying that there should be an attempt on Trump's life or that he was trying to imply that. But again, all the stuff that I said earlier still applies. There is nobody, no president that has been in as much danger and been threatened as many times as Donald Trump. And it is because of the behavior, not only of the crazies out there, but because of the rhetoric that comes from the left.
Did Trump say anything about this? Did he respond to this in any way?
Oh yeah, he said Comey knew exactly what that meant. Trump said in a Fox News interview, a child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. So yeah, he knows. And again, if the president of the United States decides, okay, you want to make these remarks, you're supposed to be held to a higher standard as someone that was formerly the director of the FBI.
Supposedly intelligent.
Yeah. It's the same argument that I've made about Ilhan Omar and some of the more inflammatory rhetoric that she's made. When people were talking about whether or not it was actually breaking the law to talk to illegal immigrants and say, tell them, hey, these are the things that you can or cannot say to ICE agents. These are the things you should say and stuff. Granted, the actual content of what they were telling illegal immigrants to say was not illegal, but they should be held to a higher standard. They shouldn't be trying to help illegal immigrants to defy or avoid law enforcement. And if that were a normal average person just telling them, or an activist, I might say, okay, it's not such a big deal. But considering it was Ilhan Omar or it was AOC or a member of Congress, an elected member of Congress, that comes with an amount of authority, and these people that were listening, they likely were saying, this person is telling me how to avoid being deported, not telling me what my rights are. And that kind of extra authority that comes with being a congressperson has to be taken into account. Now, again, I don't think they should be arrested for it, but I wouldn't have a problem with, censure from the Congress, censure from the House. Look, man, you're telling these people, hey, this is how you avoid getting picked up by ICE. You're helping them avoid getting picked up by ICE. So.
I mean, also just like making little shapes in the sand is kind of lame.
Yeah, he spent hours probably doing that. He's like, I got to go find a certain shells. I'll look exactly like.
Yeah, that's more questionable.
Because that is a social
it's a
point.
Sus.
Now he's cool. Now he's cool. Now that Ed Cranston, all those people are doing all the same thing.
This isn't the first time he's been walking on the beach and saw something either. I forget what the other
Harris 2024, something like that.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm just walking
on the
beach and I saw this.
Wait, so he's done this before?
Yeah, this isn't the first.
It's like his go-to move. That's even sadder.
My morning walk, I found this.
Oh, come on.
I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that it's politics, you'd put it on Cringe of the Day.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I would. I mean, that might get the pass anyways. That's sad.
We're gonna in context. This is a similar story, and it's a little more fun. From Libs of TikTok, breaking: Ed Krasenstein says Secret Service showed up at his house after he posted 8647 and plays dumb about what 86 means, despite leftists openly boasting about using it to refer to assassinating Trump. So let's listen to what.
So moments ago, the Trump administration just had the U.S. Secret Service come to my house.
Woohoo.
You might be wondering why. Because yesterday I made a post that said 8647, which means, if you look it up, get rid of Trump, as in impeach Donald Trump, as in 25th Amendment Donald Trump, as in vote Trump out of office.
Does it?
Why, you may ask? Because last night on the news, Donald Trump made the claim that 8647 means assassinate him, which it doesn't. I would absolutely never, ever call for violence against anyone, let alone the President of the United States. So the Secret Service agents were extremely friendly. They were like, yeah, we understand. It's just something we have to do because Washington told us to. Washington told them to come give me a visit. That's what he said. Trump wants to be a dictator, and I will not be intimidated into not voicing my opinions or my dissent against him, ever. When Biden was president, multiple large social media accounts on the right used the term 8646, meaning get rid of Biden.
It's true.
But now they want to create this new meaning in order to go after people who disagree with them. We're not going to become a dictatorship. Keep fighting back in a non-violent way.
So I don't feel bad for Krasenstein. Again, I don't feel bad for these people at all. The Secret Service didn't pick him up. He didn't go to jail. He wasn't booked. He wasn't arrested. And the Secret Service will go to your house and kind of sniff around if you make any kind of comments that they think are questionable. It doesn't have to be just, oh, hey, explicitly do this violent thing. If you're making remarks that are questionable, you might get a visit from the Secret Service, depending on your level of notoriety, how possibly serious they think you might be.
And isn't this the same guy who just called for riots if President Trump invokes his pardon power?
I don't know. Maybe.
They were just, the Krasensteins were just calling for riots if Donald Trump pardons Derek Chauvin. So they're absolutely calling for beyond nonviolent resistance. They were absolutely saying that, oh, riots are going to happen. I completely get it if it happens.
I mean, they use weasel words with that, much in the same way when 2020 was going on, and they would put the stuff for bailing out rioters, but really it was bailing out people who were arrested for protesting. It's not bailing out rioters; it's bailing out protesters. Also, if I was going to give Ed some advice, know the limitations of your voice. I know the limitations of my voice. I don't have the ability to give great rousing speeches because I just don't have the voice for it. He should stick to doing that online. It doesn't work as well.
He probably did
in text then.
Yeah. There you go. But he didn't say anything. Never said anything about how many times, TJ, you said that Biden had people visit the Secret Service. You said a big number earlier.
It was 72.
Yeah.
I mean, and it wasn't visits. These were DOJ indictments and criminal charges and arrests made over social media posts that were construed to be violent threats against the president of the United States. So this idea that the left didn't do this and, oh, if people said this about Joe Biden, nothing happened to them, is nonsensical.
Yeah, Ed, where were you then?
Yeah. I mean, that's political whataboutism at its core, though. Most of the time, it's like you're not paying as close attention to the things that are done on your own side. And I don't know whether he would actually have called it out. I would guess he probably wouldn't have. But most people have a blind spot especially if they're party affiliated and really, really support one side, they have a blind spot for their own actions.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very charitable way to take it, or to.
I'm not saying that that's true here. I'm saying in general, people do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think that when it comes to the professional people like the Krasensteins, I mean, their job is to get on Twitter and hate on Republicans and hate on
he's
Trump.
Paid,
Handsomely.
paid by the parties. So
yeah. And I'm not sure which organization, but, it is his professional job. I think that they know when they're doing something.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
No doubt.
there are times when someone on our side is saying something and I'll be like, or I'll say something and then I'll be like, and someone will call me out and I'll be like, maybe, and sometimes I'm like, no, this is the blah, blah, blah. But sometimes I'll be like, all right, I can see why you're saying that. That's not really what I was thinking. But, so if you're in this space, I do think that it makes sense to be like, hey, you should, again, you kind of have to be held to a bit of a higher standard than, your average person. I wouldn't say that the Krasensteins need to be held to the standard of, James Comey or a congressperson, but because of their experience, because of their income, their income stream, I think that they should at least, be held to a higher standard than, rando, anon on the internet.
I would love for them no one to ever share their content ever again. Never go to their page and let's let them go into the ether.
Well, this is the fact that the Secret Service visited him. I mean, they are making a boatload of money.
Sure, this occasion.
It's the same thing that with Hassan, who allegedly Hassan got pulled aside by TSA when he came back from an international trip. But there is rumors that he may have not actually been, or he may have been exaggerating what happened. What do you got
Serge
there?
knows.
Come on,
The camera's off, but
give me something.
yeah, basically, people were saying that he exaggerated. Like he said, it was way longer than it was supposed to have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, who's to know? Maybe he did get questioned for a little while.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that he didn't. But I'm not actually going to give it to him. First off, if other people that have had the same thing to them have had, completely different stories.
Yeah, and
Sensationalizing
Hassan is definitely going to make money off of those. Yeah. This story, it was a story on his stream, I'm sure, and he's complaining about it, and he's getting
makes money off.
Yeah, he's getting donations and level 4 subscribers on his Twitch channel about it. So
Comey needs to try something new. Instead of the stuff in the sand, he should do like a dirty window with like
the back of a car.
Yeah, on the back of like a car with a dirty window. It wouldn't look so fake.
No.
Nice.
He even color coordinated them. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that it's a problem, and I don't think that the Krassensteins are actually in any kind of serious danger at all. So we're going to jump to this story here. The Trump administration working on a plan to move 1 million Palestinians to Libya. This is going to be hilarious. Details are murky, and no final agreement has been reached, but the plan is under serious enough consideration that the administration has discussed it with Libyan leadership. NBC News reports the Trump administration is working on a plan to permanently relocate up to 1 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to Libya. 5 people with knowledge of the effort told NBC News. The plan is under serious enough consideration that the administration has discussed it with Libya's leadership. 2 people with direct knowledge of the plans and a former U.S. official said. In exchange for the resettling of Palestinians, the administration would potentially release to Libya billions of dollars of funds that the U.S. froze more than a decade ago, those 3 people said. No final agreement has been reached, and Israel has been kept informed of the administration's discussion, the same 3 sources said. The State Department and the National Security Council did not respond to multiple requests for comment before this article was published. After publication, a spokesperson told NBC News these reports are untrue, which is,
par for the
doesn't
course.
really mean anything.
Yeah.
So does this a genocide make? The ability, if you can actually get the Palestinians out of Gaza, because I'm of the opinion that the war so far is not actually a genocide. A lot of people have died, and it's bad, and it's perfectly fine to be critical of the way that Israel's carrying out the war, but I don't consider it a genocide. If they are actually going to remove everybody from the Gaza Strip, especially if it's permanently, I think that might actually be closer to the definition of genocide.
Yeah, but doesn't the genocide? I don't have it looked up, but isn't it like killing?
Well, so if you're trying to remove people from a place by killing them and actually getting them out, I think that falls under the definition of genocide. I'm not particularly I'd have to Google it to make sure. I don't think that the war in Gaza is considered a genocide, mostly because I think that the Palestinian, the Hamas started it. And I kind of am like, if you guys are picking the fight, it's not a genocide. Just because you're losing the war that you started.
It would be. It's international destruction of a whole or part of a national, ethnic, or racial, religious. So like if they moved them out of there, they'd be destroying them from that area. So
yeah,
maybe
so that might actually qualify as a genocide.
And so, I'll be level. Hamas absolutely started it. Yeah. That being said, I'm a student of Ron Paul in the Mises Institute. I'm fundamentally a non-interventionist and not just America first. I'm America only. One, the president has denied that this is true. Like, he's denied it. So it's not happening. That being said, when we can look beyond just nationality, ethnic origin, I'm more interested in what is going on in the United States. Right now, there's 11 to 15 million illegal immigrants, regardless of where they are from. Rather than moving Palestinians to Libya, I'd much rather move 11 to 15 million illegal immigrants back to where they originally came from.
Yeah. Fair enough. I tend to agree with you. Do you guys have a take on this?
I mean, I have a pretty.
Should they be sent to the Congo?
I have a pretty, admittedly utopian idea of foreign policy, meaning in the same thing, which is America first. And I don't really care to see us being involved in these types of things. And if the idea here is that you're going to displace a whole bunch of people and move them, apparently on the American dime, using U.S. government might to do so, I don't care if you can't even get a spending bill through here and you can't even take care of the people here. I don't really have the interest in it, and I don't really care.
I'm convinced. Yes, I agree. Everything with Brett said.
Yeah. Like it's not the most sophisticated take, but most like usually when this type of stuff comes up, it's like, how can you expect me to take you seriously when you can't even figure out the things going on here with the people whose lives are affected directly each and every day? And this happens, and I bring this up on here all the time. It's like every time there's a natural disaster, the U.S. government puts on a clinic on how to not handle something, whether it's Hawaii, whatever it is. Like they screw up everything, and I'm supposed to imagine that my tax dollars, your tax dollars, should be going to taking care of this, which has nothing to do with me and nothing to do with the millions of Americans who suffer each and every day. It's actually comical to me. But again, like I said, I don't have the most sophisticated view on foreign policy, and I understand that there's a lot that goes into it with trade and protectionism and all of these things. I just don't care.
Well, I mean, if they're in Libya, then I think that's too far to shoot homemade rockets at Israel. So the Israelis should like that, right?
Are there open air slave trade, right, going on there too?
Where in Libya?
Yeah.
Well, if I understand correctly, Libya's actually kind of cleaned up some of the slave trade that was going on after Gaddafi was killed. Like for a couple of years afterward, yes, there was slavery was back on the menu, boys. They were definitely involved in the slave trade, and I don't think that. They may have cleaned it up, but I don't think that it's, some kind of Western paradise or
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
I just saw the thing about Cory Bush and Ayanna Pressley talking about another reparations bill. Am I going to have to pay reparations in Libya in like 20 years? Like, I don't want to do that either.
Yes, you will. Actually,
no.
I can imagine. I can't believe that they're talking about more reparations here in the United States.
I'm just saying, we'll find a way. They'll find a way to spend the money.
Well, I mean, I do think that they'll find a way to spend the money. So actually talking about the cost, NBC News was saying such an effort would likely be extremely expensive, and it's not clear how the Trump administration would seek to pay for it. In the past, the administration has said Arab nations would help with rebuilding Gaza after the war there ends, but they have been critical of Trump's idea of permanently relocating Palestinians. In recent weeks, the Trump administration has also looked at Libya as a place where it could send some immigrants it wants to deport from the U.S. However, plans to send one group of immigrants to Libya were stalled by a federal judge this month. I'm not sure sending immigrants in the United States to Libya is a good idea. Listen, what's his name? Palmer Luckey, who's one of the CEOs or one of the guys from Mara, Libya, one of the guys that started Andril, or the guy that started Andril. He has a great idea called Liberty City in Guantanamo, and basically dump a bunch of money into Guantanamo and make it into an actual spaceport, and because there's an eternal lease on the property, and it's close to the equator, so launching rockets to space is actually viable from there. That one of the things is you want to launch rockets from close to the equator. Apparently, I didn't know that until recently.
It makes sense.
But he's also saying, if you could get to Liberty City from Cuba, then you'll get a passport or get a green card if you can find a job, or if they can train you or something. And I do think that sending illegal immigrants from the United States, people that are not, or illegal immigrants that are here in the United States that shouldn't be here, particularly if they're criminals, send them to Gitmo. I don't have any kind of problem with that. I think it's a good use of the installation.
Do they have to take a boat over and see if they make it or not, or do we give them a plane ride?
Maybe this is where they host that ICE reality show they were talking
I was
about.
thinking a raft made of Coca-Cola bottles.
Oh.
Yeah, just screw the caps on, tie those bad boys together.
Yeah.
What's the meme? It's like waterboarding on Guantanamo Bay sounds sick until you think about it.
Yeah, right. What do you think? Do you think that that's out of the question? I understand as a Ron Paul guy, you're kind of like, I don't know, but what do we do? What do we do with the illegal immigrants that are here, particularly the dangerous ones? And what would you say about how do we get rid of them if it were up to you?
I would say to send them back to from where they came from. I get that there are some countries that don't want to take them back, and I get it. I don't want them in my country either. So that said, they're not our problem. Now,
well, if they're here,
they're our problem now, but I want them to no longer be our problem.
Okay.
I want to. So In terms of Gitmo, I was a huge skeptic of Gitmo until I saw what governors were doing to people in 2020, and then I sort of took on the Michael Malice perspective of it, of governors to Gitmo at
Politicians
that
to
point.
Gitmo.
But that said, I'm not fundamentally opposed to the idea of just shipping them off to a foreign installation that we look. The reality is this: we need to get them out of the United States one way or another. And things that we can do, there's things that we can do at the state level. There's a federal program called 287G that makes it to where ICE can deputize local and state law enforcement for purposes of immigration enforcement. What a force multiplier that could be.
Yeah.
And something along those lines is something that we can absolutely do in order to help out with that, because one of the things that we have is we have a volume issue. As I mentioned, the conservative estimate is 11 to 15 million. There's estimates that go as high up into the 40 millions. So we need to crack down on illegal immigration. I think that's largely state and federal partnerships, partnerships with foreign nations. El Salvador is, in my view, doing God's work in helping us with making sure that criminal illegal immigrants are deported as swiftly and efficiently as possible. Unfortunately, our own courts are not necessarily doing that, especially given the Supreme Court decision today. Now, that was a narrow holding where they just said that the notice was insufficient. So it was a setback. That said, President Trump seems absolutely adamant about getting as many illegal immigrants out as humanly possible. Part of that, I think, as well, though, is making sure that we're focused on defending our own borders and not the borders of foreign nations, right? We're spending so much money abroad, we're not really focusing on the internal. And I can think of an empire that collapsed under similar circumstances.
So we shouldn't send them to Libya?
If they're from Libya.
There you go. No, I mean, but the story we're talking about, go full circle, is Palestinians going to Libya.
Oh, it's not happening.
Not happening?
It's the president's the White House has denied it. It's
Okay.
I think it's the media just trying to get clicks, concocting a story because they just aren't. You just look to their ratings.
Well, Israel gets a lot of clicks. Any story about Gaza, any story about Israel, it'll get people to click on it and get people to talk.
So
about
what is the actual benefit? Like, so you're saying that the idea would be to ship people that are here illegally now to was it Libya, or was that
Well, so there are some people that are
or to Guantanamo? I'm sorry, to Guantanamo. That was the other.
I think that it's a good idea to send criminal aliens that are.
So they're
legal
still
immigrants
legally,
that are criminals.
So they're still legally under your jurisdiction, but away from the American people.
Yeah.
Okay. Rather than, is that because we can't get them? The countries they're from won't take them back.
Yeah, if they're criminals, if they've committed violent crimes here in the U.S. And we can't get their country of origin to take them back, we should send them to Guantanamo Bay.
Because the other country won't take them.
Because
Okay.
the other country
All right.
won't
I
take
understand.
any country that'll accept the illegal aliens here, send them back to their own country. Like if the country won't give us hassle, if they're like, yeah, fine, land here, they're not criminals, or whatever, they can go do whatever they want. That's fine with me. That's the best option. People that are criminals, people that have committed crimes here, or that are gang members, that their countries of origin don't want them back, then ship them to Gitmo. Lock them up in there. That's in my opinion the best option there. Get them away from the American people, prevent them from being able to hurt the American people anymore. And then we've talked about this on the show a bunch, but for people that are not criminals, that are just here, that are not violent criminals or whatever, that are just here illegally, that's their crime, that I think we should, ratchet up the pressure on them to make them self-deport. So start making sure that start doing ICE raids, doing more ICE raids to business owners. Start making sure that if you own a business, put the word out. If you own a business and you hire illegal aliens, knowingly hire illegal aliens, that you're going to lose your business. The government will take it because the consequences have to be bad. Yeah. Because there's a lot of
when all you're doing is paying a fine. They just take that as cost benefit analysis.
Yeah, because exactly because right now the situation is it's significantly less expensive to pay illegals to work than it is to pay Americans because you don't have all the taxes that go along with it. The illegals will work for cheap because they'll live in a significantly their living conditions, they'll have significantly lower living conditions than normal Americans, and they'll send half their money back home. And that money, when they get back to their country of origin in 10 years after they've been saving or whatever, they'll live like kings. You know, the amount of money that you need to send back to Guatemala or whatever to have a really, really nice lifestyle, it's not a lot. You can go down there, if you can save up 50 grand over 10 years, you know, you can go down there and live really, really well on that kind of money. You can save you can make sure that your mom's taken care of, your family's taken care of.
Yeah, your wife and kids, if you're
Yeah,
a lot of men come over, so they take care of the families like that.
Yeah, so it's you know, it's a strong incentive. So you have to make sure that businesses know if you hire people that are here illegally, you're not just going to get a fine. You're going to lose your property. You're going to lose your business. Then the goal being those businesses won't hire illegals, then the illegals will have a harder time finding work. More illegals will leave because a lot of the people that are here illegally that are actually free, that are not sex trafficked, they're stuck in all the horrible conditions that come along with the coyotes and illegal immigration and all of that. Those people, they're here because they want to work. There is substance to the argument that these people are here because they want to make a better life, and that's true. They want to have a better life for their families and for their families in the home country. So you need to make it uncomfortable for them to stay. And I think that that's the best option that we have is to make it uncomfortable by applying pressure to the people that are actually hiring them. And it's another thing is it makes the Democrats happy too, because when you target the illegal immigrants, the Democrats are like, oh, these poor people that are just here trying to blah, blah, blah. If you target business owners, you can get Democrats.
They love
to
that.
Yeah, they love to put the screws to normal, hardworking Americans.
Fair, they're fairly consistent on that. They would love to do that. They would like to be able to take your business away for anything.
Yeah,
like whether you're not meeting a net zero.
Yeah,
or any other. They would love to do that.
Exactly. So
one rat, one cockroach. Come on.
Yeah, I mean. That is the standard MO of the left is, if you don't meet the standards, they want to punish you.
So I actually do disagree with the notion that the left is consistent on their opposition to business. I think that they are perfectly fine with massive corporations stamping out mom and pop shops. I think fundamentally their model is designed to centralize economic power, and whether that be all economic power in the state, obviously that's their preference, but they'll settle for all economic power in the hands of a select few. They'll settle for that.
I mean, I feel like at a certain point, there's when you have a business leader to point out they don't like that, so they look at Jeff Bezos as Satan. They look at Elon Musk as Satan. They're critical of the face of a big business, without really maybe being consistent in how they view their policies as affecting big business. And I think one of the ways that's turned around the most in the last 10 years is their reliance on big pharma and how they've completely shifted. The left used to be the side of crunchies and homeopathic remedies and all of that type of stuff, whereas now that type of belief system is intrinsically right-wing, whereas they love pharmaceuticals and they love the pharmaceutical industry and trust the science and stuff like that. So it's shifted there. But I do agree that there is it happened during COVID when they were talking about, everyone's okay with Walmart being open, but your local grocery store, that's just a step too far.
Right, and that's kind of the entire point there, right? They love Pfizer, they love Moderna, heck, they love Amazon. Democrats love voting for subsidies for these mega corporations. They love doing that because it's more opportunity to spend. It's more opportunity to stamp out the opportunity for you as an average American to grow. And fortunately, we're getting to that point where the lid's blown off of it.
I mean, that shows a certain level of incongruity with their party, because there's also a large sector of leftists and, far leftists who don't like Jeff Bezos and don't like big business. And if you go and look up anything about them online, it's going to be them talking about how evil Amazon is. And I always thought that was interesting, given the fact that you would think that they would love the idea that it's providing jobs for people, or the reach they have to now deliver something to you in set period of time, almost anywhere in the country. And that's probably more a side effect of the schism in the party.
Sure, and that is one thing to consider. That said, I take one's words as one thing and I take their actions as another.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders loves speaking out against war. But the only thing he loves more than speaking out against war is he loves to vote to fund it. I mean, that's one of those.
I've never looked into his votes when it comes to
Every war.
Yeah.
He has voted to fund every single war that we are currently in, every single war Barack Obama started, every single war George Bush started, every war that I have seen in my lifetime, Bernie Sanders has voted to fund it every single time.
So my opinion of Bernie Sanders is that he's a coward. Do you think that that's because he's afraid to take on the Democrats and actually stand up to them? I mean, he says that he's independent, but he still falls in line with he caucuses with the Democrats, and he falls in line with the Democrats pretty regularly. I'm not aware of him kind of doing the Ron Paul thing where he stands up and says, "No, I'm not gonna fall in line here."
I think Bernie Sanders genuinely believes in the global neocon consensus. I think he does. And the reason why is he comes from a sect of the left that is fundamentally pro-war. The only time the American left was anti-war was during the Cold War era. And it wasn't because it was war. It was because it was opposition to communism.
Yeah.
That's the only time in world history where the left was anti-war. Before that, the right was the anti-war party. That's where you had Robert Taft. That's where you had the America First Committee. That's where you had the old right.
What about Vietnam?
That's part of the Cold War.
Okay,
Right. So the left was against Vietnam, but the reason why they were against Vietnam was because the mission was to stop the spread of communism into it, right?
Okay.
So
Is Korea part of the Cold War as well? Or
yeah,
no? Okay.
yes, because
that whole time period?
yeah, North Korea.
Anything after World War II
Until-
until the fall of the Soviet
Gotcha.
Union.
Right. It was always the right that was expressing skepticism. And you can see that revival of the old right with Donald Trump talking about ending the endless wars, J.D. Vance, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Ron Paul. There's Pat Buchanan in the 90s teaming up with Murray Rothbard to create a paleo-libertarian, paleo-conservative alliance to ensure that there was a sect that doesn't believe the government should control every aspect of your life, but is not just creating a new anti-war sentiment, but going back to the original. I mean, we can think about it at the state level as well. I'm the primary co-sponsor of a bill, Bring Our Troops Home has been given, called Defend the Guard, that says that National Guardsmen cannot be deployed into foreign combat zones unless Congress declares war. It's all Republicans who are introducing that bill. And it's almost always Democrats who are the most vocal opponents of it, other than the industrial complex.
Instead, I picture Bernie Sanders like watching Saving Private Ryan in Full Metal Jacket before he goes to vote.
So to bring it back around to the Middle East and to Israel, NBC News is reporting disagreements on Iran, Gaza straining Trump-Netanyahu relationship. Now, this should make a lot of the Israel skeptical people quite happy, because one of the things that they wanted to see out of Donald Trump was a more of an America first perspective, and they've been of the opinion that Donald Trump was very deferential to Israel. I don't think that I had that same sense, but, considering the group of people that we're talking about, it's not a surprise that they had that opinion. NBC News reports Washington. When President Donald Trump took office in January, he and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu were closely aligned on how to approach the most pressing issues in their relationship, the war in Gaza and aggression from Iran. Trump lifted a hold the Biden administration to put on sending large bombs to Israel. He encouraged Israeli military operations to finish the job against Hamas in Gaza. He agreed with Netanyahu on confronting Iran and its proxy groups in the region. But in recent weeks, the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu has become strained as the two leaders are increasingly at odds over a strategy for tackling these challenges now that Hamas has been significantly degraded and Iran weakened. According to two U.S. officials, two Middle Eastern diplomats, and two other people with knowledge of the tensions. Where Netanyahu sees an opportunity to finally take out Iran's nuclear facility, Trump sees an opportunity to remove the threat of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon by making a deal. As Israel hits Gaza with new military offensive, Trump is pushing for a ceasefire and looking to implement his post-war plan for rebuilding the area into a Riviera of the Middle East. And after Trump halted the U.S. military campaign against the Iranian-backed Houthi militant group, a shocked Netanyahu said Israel would defend itself. What do you guys think? Do you think that there is daylight between Netanyahu and Donald Trump? Is this just Donald Trump believing that the United States interests don't align perfectly with Israel's interests? I am of the opinion that Iran cannot be trusted. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to have a war with Iran, but I don't believe that a deal on a nuclear Iran is something that will actually that Iran will keep its word on.
No government. If we sign something, we would still be doing something in secret. So no matter, I have no faith that if they said no, we're not going to do anything. Unless we can monitor them. If we do inspections, then maybe they still have secret sites probably down the road somewhere else.
I would assume any deal that the United States were to sign would have inspectors involved, that they would have to go in there and verify that they were not enriching uranium past a certain level, because it has to be like to make nuclear power, I think it only has to be like 20% or something like that, very low. But to make an actual weapon, you have to be like 90% enriched or something. So,
and they would also have to give us like ability to fly over there, so we can use monitors and radars to look at.
I imagine
That's a big one.
it would be a third party. It wouldn't be Americans.
Okay,
that were
sure.
doing it.
That's fair.
Usually, it's the International Atomic
Israel?
Energy. No. So, yeah, it's going to be the Jews.
You're like, we found a spot.
The Jews. Yeah, they're going to be the ones doing it. No, but I mean, historically, when it came to inspectors, the inspectors would be sent by a third party, oftentimes the UN. But yeah, do you guys think that this is showing light in between Israel and the U.S.? Do you think that this matters, or?
Look, Israel has to act in its own self-interest. America has to act in its own interest as well. And the reality is President Trump's break from the endless use of hostility abroad, no matter where this is, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Eastern Europe with the situation in the Ukraine, right? We are seeing a new generation where we're getting back to utilizing diplomacy rather than belligerence at the global scale. And I don't think what Israel is doing really has anything to do with what Donald Trump is trying to do here. I think Trump is just doing what Trump does best on this. And in terms of the question about the deal-making process, look, we've got to be realists here. The international deals are deals between governments. These are monopolies on force. These are the most dishonest, fraudulent entities that have graced the existence of the planet. We should still focus on diplomacy. That being said, understand that distrust is fundamentally part of international relations.
Yeah. Stuxnet 2. Let's just do that.
Did we do that?
I mean, isn't that like the common consensus is America and
Thought it was the Jews.
and Israel?
Yeah,
Both. What is Stuxnet?
It was like a cyber weapon, right?
yeah. It was so it was a worm that was a computer virus that essentially made the centrifuges spin at a rate where they broke themselves. So it was surprisingly effective. I guess it was in the computers for a long, long time, sitting dormant until they finally.
This is real life?
Pardon me?
This is real life and something happened?
Yes, this is real life, Raymond.
I mean, I'm just saying, it just sounds kind of, I thought you were talking about a movie. We're talking to Brett.
Did you know that
no.
Did you know that the Israelis spent like a decade selling beepers?
I've
to
heard,
Hamas
yes, sure.
and blew a bunch of dicks off.
Yeah, like 1,500 or something like that.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that's just hilarious.
I mean, what a bet! What a bet to go long that they're still going to be using pagers 10 years later.
Well, they infiltrated their communications so thoroughly. Hamas was like, "Well, we kind of have to do this," and the Jews were like, "Yo, check this out. We'll sell you some pagers. We'll help you out, buddy."
So, are you of the opinion that this is a strained relationship, or do you just think that this is the cost of doing business when you're an international superpower like America is?
I think Netanyahu's a hawk. Yeah. I think that Netanyahu sees that that they have been successful in their military campaign in Gaza, and they have been successful in weakening Iran, and now Netanyahu believes that he believes that if it were the United States and Israel striking, he could at least take out Iran's nuclear capabilities for a long time. I don't know how long, but I'm thinking in the order of decades.
And that's more for their own self-preservation than for America's self-preservation, given the location.
Yes. The Saudis don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon either, right? Like Iran is the major destabilizing force in the Middle East, right? Like you have all these Arab countries that have signed on to the Abraham Accords. Trump's trying to get the Saudis to sign on to the Abraham Accords. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if they did sign on to the Abraham Accords, recognize Israel, and normalize relations. Nice. That would be a considerably big deal. Like the Abraham Accords already are Nobel Peace Prize worthy.
He should have got it for sure.
Yeah, Trump should have got it. Like we were talking about it last night, and he's not going to get it because of who actually is on the Nobel Committee. They're Europeans that don't like Trump and don't like the fact that Trump is kind of an America First guy. But even still, it was unprecedented that there was the Abraham Accords at all. And so the attempt that Trump is making to get more countries, specifically Saudi Arabia, onto the Abraham Accords. He probably would try to get Syria, which is kind of crazy considering like just a month ago, the president of Syria had a $10 million bounty on his head from the United States, and then Trump just met with him. So that's a little crazy. But, you know, I don't think that it's out of the question to get all these countries on. Iran is the country that is paying Hezbollah, or was paying, funding Hezbollah and sending them weapons. And Hezbollah is not just like, when you say a militia, like you think of kind of like, dudes with, like, you kind of think of Afghans, right? Like those dudes, like the Mujahideen.
This is a real army.
That's not what Hezbollah is. Hezbollah has actual missiles and rockets, and they're a legitimate fighting force, closer to the Houthis than Hamas. But Iran still pays the families of suicide bombers and stuff like that. So the major destabilizing force in the Middle East is Iran. So, I know that it would be a very bad thing if Iran got a nuclear weapon. And I think that the U.S. doesn't like it, or doesn't like it just as much as, no, I can't say just as much, because Israel has an existential question. Like,
so it's for America, it's for the benefit of an ally more than it is a threat
multiple
against.
allies, but yeah. So I mean, I don't think that. I do think that Donald Trump likes to do deals. That's where he feels comfortable. Military action is not his thing. He's not from the military. He's shown that he will do it if necessary. Yeah. But I think that his preference is deals. And I think that he also believes that the United States, being such a global powerhouse, that they can actually get deals that will produce positive results.
Peace through strength. Is what he wants. And I'm just happy that Nikki Haley didn't win presidency, or Lindsey Graham, because we'd already be bombed,
right?
Or they would already be taken care of.
Yeah. So what do you think, CJ? Do you think this is the right play?
I mean, I think deal making is always preferable to endless wars.
Yes.
I'm part of the generation that would have to fight the wars that Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham would have absolutely wanted to fight. And frankly, Americans sign up for the military to fight for their country, not to fight for the interests of foreign nations and major corporations. That's not what they sign up for. And Americans deserve far better than that. And we see this rise in young Americans fighting for a more sensible foreign policy. And that's a large reason why President Trump did so well among young folks, among Gen Z, is because he just realized that we essentially had a foreign policy that amounted to nothing more than a death cult. Endless wars will end one way or another, whether that be through diplomacy or through nuclear annihilation. And I'm so glad President Trump is choosing the former.
Yeah.
I served when we had no wars, and I was, God bless America, and God bless no one was fighting then. And that's why I think our recruitment numbers, like if you're going to join the military just go in some desert and die, your numbers aren't going to be big. You're not going to get people coming in. But if you're doing it just in case if something happens, you're ready to defend your land, then we'll get more recruitment going on.
I guess I see it as like a harder discussion to have with most Americans. Like I said, when I say that my view on foreign policy is utopian, it's the idea that I like the idea of putting America first and then the rest of it let the chips fall where they may. But I understand that the world is a lot more complicated than that, and I understand that whatever intervention or interactions going on here is to the benefit of multiple allies to the United States. But I guess I think of it as America struggling so much here that so much time and energy is spent on these discussions that it doesn't seem like anything ever changes. As much as Trump has done good in a lot of these things, it's not like it's ever going away because it's not like it's ever going to go away because there will always be foreign interests that are going to look to America to intervene in some fashion. So I guess it's just one of those things that I have a hard time seeing it out on something like this. And I think, like what you said, that Trump's approach to foreign policy through deal making rather than bombing is probably the best path forward, but it's hard to imagine that it'll stay that way because I don't know if we'll ever see that again from
I think it's going to get even more toward diplomacy and non-interventionism.
I guess I'm saying, like, if the left wins again, like I don't see anyone pushing anti-war on the other side, and given how often the presidency switches back and forth and the president's role in foreign policy, it just doesn't seem like you're ever going to have enough time between terms where you're going to see great change made. But I might be black-pilled on that.
No, if the left takes over, you're 100% right. But I can tell you when it comes to young conservatives, these guys grew up listening to Ron Paul. Yeah. These guys grew up listening to Thomas Massie and Rand Paul talking about the foreign policy consensus, hearing J.D. Vance say, we don't have to devolve into endless wars. This is a great thing. I mean, I can just think about just a few weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. with a bunch of other young legislators with an organization called Run Gen Z, and hearing the skepticism of the foreign policy consensus, seeing that there is a breakaway. We're at a turning point where it's no longer cool to be a neocon. It no longer is.
Yeah, dude, kids are done dying overseas for no reason. Like, American youth are over that.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is we've got one quick thing that we're gonna talk about. Oh, my bad. This next story here. 10 inmates escaped from a New Orleans jail with the help from inside our department, sheriff says. This is developing right now, and it was updated 27 minutes ago. NBC News reports 10 inmates escaped from the Orleans Parish Justice Center in New Orleans with the help of people inside of our department, the sheriff said Friday. Officials discovered the inmates missing during a routine head count around 8:30 a.m. Friday. Sheriff Susan Houston said at a news conference, calling it a very serious and unacceptable situation. The inmates allegedly started yanking on a cell to pull it off track just before 12:30 a.m., the sheriff said in an update. Mayor Silas Phipps Jr. from the Sheriff's Department on Friday evening said that the inmates entered that cell before exiting an adjacent loading dock door and traveling down a side road behind the building. They were able to break open a door, Hudson said. They were still able to exit the jail about 1:01 a.m. after breaching a wall behind a toilet in the jail. So what do you guys think? Are we going to blame the woman sheriff just for giggles and grins?
Bill said it here first, ladies and gentlemen. It's the woman's fault.
It is. But no, I mean, this kind of event is a big deal, especially considering 10 people escaped, and this is a jail, so it's not a prison, right? If I understand correctly, they're talking about the jail. But if it's an inside job, what does that say about the situation in Orleans Parish and the jails here? If you look at this picture that we've got on display now, they were taunting the correctional officers, saying things like, too easy, and what was it? Let's see. We innocent and too easy. Photos released by the sheriff's office show the inside of a cell where the escapee is believed to have happened. Hold on a second. A large hole was cut behind a toilet with phrases such as "we innocent" and "too easy." And you can look. These are they're taunting the
Wait,
tongue out.
I saw that it said that like 4 of the people that escaped were on trial for murder. right? Did I read that correctly?
You said that earlier, but
Like, if so, why were they like? Is it because they were remanded to custody while on trial?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
If
only
so,
jail
then they're
is-
just making this like you could go to jail or to trial and potentially win. Now you're definitely going to jail
yeah.
for escaping prison.
it's likely.
and now they're
they-
going to prison
Low
for escaping
impulse
jail.
control.
I think that it's likely they actually committed the murders. Maybe
Is that why they bounced out? But listen,
mean,
how do you
no.
how do you break against the wall like that? They did pretty good. That's supposed to be at least bolted in there, secure, but they took it out.
allegedly
Must be an
they're-
old prison. Gotta be
Allegedly,
old.
they had it was possible that there was it was an inside job.
They gave him a screwdriver.
Thin people only escaping from that though.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You see the bars?
No fat people allowed to get out.
Yeah, I don't imagine that.
Don't be racist.
Well, wait a minute, there's nothing
I know,
racist
I
about
know,
talking
I
about
know.
fat people.
I'm being weightist here. What are you talking about?
That's ableist because if you're fat, you're disabled, right? Technically, that's the rule.
Just reminds me you should go watch the show Prison Break and the
there we
show
go.
Breakout Kings, which was fantastic.
It is. They have great seasons, like 2 or 3, right?
Yep.
When asked by a reporter if power tools had been used, Chief of Corrections Jay Mallett said it was something the department was looking
See,
into.
that's how they took it down.
So they're
They-
just like it's like the middle of the night and a guy's just running a jackhammer.
You know,
He's like, "Where did you get a buzzsaw?"
I ain't seen nothing.
From the commissary.
and it's concrete, so they got a hammer drill. If it's concrete, they got to break through it.
It's more than just a breach of security. It was some type of help, he said in a news conference. It would definitely be some type of tool used other than just the strength of a sheer individual. So it likely was some kind of power.
So it's not even one of those ones where they tie a bunch of floss together and use a pair of scissors. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing homemade about that tool. The sheriff's office initially said that 11 inmates had escaped. Hudson clarified that one man, Keith Lewis, had been moved to a different cell and was never on the run. So they're not even
good
sure
job,
who
Keith.
actually got away.
Well, that guy's probably the smartest one because it means he's not definitely going back to
right.
jail
Yeah, he's
for
like,
this.
I'm going to see
He's
my
like,
kids.
man, y'all go ahead. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
Smooth
I
move.
don't blame him.
10 people, they just file out.
I mean,
Like, how does that even happen? Like, it had to be more than just a couple of people in on this.
I guess maybe.
Yeah.
Jail records show that at least 4 of the escaped inmates are charged with murder or attempted murder. Charges for the others include aggravated assault with a firearm, armed robbery with a firearm, armed false imprisonment, battery, and drug offenses. These dudes all did that. They all did that shit. Like they did.
Or you're
They're
really-
not innocent.
Or you're really dumb and you left anyways. Like,
That is actually. I take it back. They're all innocent.
Yeah.
And this was their choice of action. It's great.
those are crimes that they're like presumed to be guilty of. Crimes they're definitely guilty of is leaving the prison when they weren't supposed to.
Yeah, definitely.
And they
All
didn't
right.
watch that show because apparently they were. Well, I mean, they're still free, so maybe.
I wanted to end on a light note. All right, so smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Head on over to rumble.com and become a member, and you can join us for the Rumble after show. Not tonight because it's Friday, and we're getting out of here after this at 10 o'clock tonight. But Monday through Thursday, we do the after show. You can head on over to timcast.com and you can join our Discord, and then you can call in and you can ask us silly questions or ask us good questions. And another thing about the Discord is there are like 20,000 people in there. There are podcasts by people that have set up in the Discord. There are pre-shows, there are after shows. There's a couple that even got married. You can find all kinds of like-minded people in the Discord. So head on over to timcast.com and become a member today. But right now we are going to go to your Rumble rants and to your super chats. Shane H. Wilder starts off on the Rumble rants. Prayer up for all my northern homies dealing with the rain and flooding, especially in Maryland. Stay safe and dry out there. It is pretty rough tonight. Is that the case?
Did you feel the downburst? So it was like the amount of rain earlier was crazy.
It was pretty rough in Inwood, but we missed the big one because it was only for a few minutes, and there was a lot of wind though.
Or like
Let's
70 miles per hour, like stuff was getting.
Yeah, it was nuts. It's a mess. So Kali for Prez says, I love fill-in Fridays. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. WD Production says, the other day you mentioned that you have supported various veteran programs. I was hoping to get a shout out for Heroes Never Alone out of Legionnaire, Pennsylvania. We're a growing nonprofit with a Give, Send, Go. So that's Give, Send, Go, and it's Heroes Never Alone, and they're out of Legionnaire, PA. So give them a shout out there.
It's a great name too, as well, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. Joey Giggles says, "Pool bodies liberal biznitch who can't put a thought together. News at 11. Adam was a joke. He never made his point and was condescending the entire time." Yeah, if you haven't seen it, Adam Ruins Everything was on the Culture War today, and Tim kind of excoriated him. He was saying that he didn't understand why Tim was saying, "Oh, if you believe in free speech, you should make a joke about Islam." I think we all know what that'll get you, but he was struggling to come up with a reason why he wouldn't. But it's definitely worth checking out. So head on over to rumble.com, and I think it's on Rumble, right? The Culture War is on Rumble as well, right? That's the website?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so head on over to rumble.com and look for the Culture War with Tim Pool, and check that out today.
Yeah, Adam ruins Culture War podcast.
No,
I'm just saying this is a joke. You know,
he didn't ruin
everything. He ruins everything. So I heard. That's the rumor mill.
The last of my kind says, "Serge, are you going to shave your head live again to pump up PCC numbers?" Also, how the Short Act and Hear Act were gutted is shameful. Well, there's still hope for those. The Short Act and the Hearing Protection Act, there's still hope. They might get in this weekend, and if not, I will be discussing how we can primary people and how we can support their challengers. So yeah, if this part right here becomes a clip and gets on the old X,
Shane,
to let people know that if you do not support the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act, I will be doing everything I can personally to help your opponents.
I'm deaf in one ear and short, so you should support.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on. Why you against Brett having guns, man? Pims the Great says, "Do you think this will call into question all of his pardons, or will the GOP remain on their hands?" I have no idea what you're even talking about. Oh, you're talking about the first story with Joe Biden. I think the GOP will remain sitting on their hands. I don't think they're going to do anything about it. But I also think that, well, I mean, it's possible because Donald Trump was looking into the auto pen stuff, so this might tie into that. This might become evidence in the auto pen stuff, so I don't know. Let's see. A Rumble rant. Concrete Haiti says, "I say yet again, seeing how utterly lost he was with just that simple question, we must overturn everything done in his presidency, utterly erase everything he did." Well, the good news is all of the executive orders that he signed, Donald Trump has overturned them all. As for legislation, that was Congress, and I don't think that there's a whole lot we can do about that unless Congress can actually get their S together and, actually pass some laws. But I don't have high hopes for that. Let's see. Senator Biscuit says, "Shout out to TJ. I don't know if you'll remember me, but I knocked on doors for you. I was in Kentucky working for YAL, and Brandon introduced me to you. MKGA. Senator Biscuits is his name."
So I don't know which individual that is, but
I don't think
have Brandon tell Brandon to just give my number over to him, and no, thank you guys. And seriously, door knocking works. Having that face-to-face conversation with voters is one of the most important things you can do as a candidate for office or as someone who just supports one. That is the easiest way to persuade the voters, and that is truly how you make liberty win. And organizations like Citizens Alliance, Young Americans for Liberty, which, by the way, Young Americans for Liberty started out as students for Ron Paul. Awesome. They really perfected that. I mean, one of y'all's previous guests, Cliff Maloney, he is the guru of door knocking. He started a program called Operation Win at the Door. He brings in people to support Champions for Liberty in competitive races, and goodness does it swing these races. I mean, that's how we got people like Savannah Maddox out of Kentucky, who is, in my view, another protege of Thomas Massey, and the only reason I can see so far is because I stand on giants like her. It's how we get people like Tim Baxter in the New Hampshire House. It's how we get so many awesome, rock-solid fighters, and we're seeing this cultural shift by bringing in these door knockers and making sure that we're not just going off of it entirely who has the R next to their name. We're actually learning what people believe in. If there's one lesson you can learn in politics, don't subscribe to the letter. goodness, the number of Republicans who have voted for endless spending is shameful. The number of Democrats who claim to be anti-war but then vote to fund every war, as we were just talking about. And I can just think about just one example as well. If you're in Colorado, I mean, my goodness, you're the chairman of your Second Amendment caucus. This guy is the reason that the assault weapons ban just passed. He is, I mean, he also is the sponsor of the bill to allow illegal immigrants to become law enforcement. Guy's name is Ryan Armagost. This guy has an R next to his name.
Unreal.
Don't vote just because someone has an R next to their name. Actually learn where they stand. If they're an incumbent, look at their voting record. Ask them the hard questions. Don't be afraid to do that. And people like that at Young Americans for Liberty, they do that. People at Citizens Alliance, if you want their support, they make you sign a pledge. I am never going to vote to raise taxes ever. You do that, and if you go against that, you're their number one target.
Yeah.
That's just one of their pledges. Yeah. So thank you guys.
Will P says, TJ, given your successful lawsuit against Governor Andy Beshear over church closures during COVID, how should voters view his record on civil liberties if he runs for president?
Look, Andy Beshear would be the greatest disaster for civil liberties in my lifetime if he were to become president. You think government weaponization under Biden was bad? It would be worse under Andy Beshear because Andy Beshear isn't senile. He would know full well what he is doing. He would root you out. Just think about it. There was a coffee shop owner who refused to close in November of 2020. We're talking 8 months in. We know COVID isn't killing people en masse. We know COVID doesn't know the difference between whether you're at a coffee shop or if you're at Walmart. Yeah. He says, I'm not shutting down. He criticizes the governor on social media. The governor goes on television and says, we're going to make sure he never does business in Kentucky ever again. That's Andy Beshear's legacy. A federal court just unanimously said he's not entitled to qualified immunity on that. Before taking office, I was a lawyer on that case. I'm now screened off because I can't sue executive branch state officials anymore. But let's just think about this.
Fun?
As a hobby?
I wish. There's no fun exception to legislative ethics. But Andy Beshear's record on the First Amendment shows a fundamental contempt for it. His record on guns shows a fundamental contempt. And you want to talk about this guy. He doesn't believe in parents' rights. He wants to indoctrinate your children. While he was out stumping for Kamala Harris, he's at a rally in middle of the road, Iowa, holding up a baby onesie that says Pride Baby. And this guy would be the worst choice for president in 2028. And that's just an action item, is just make sure that Andy Beshear never becomes president ever.
All right. Let's see. Sporkwitch says if she had used, and I think this person is, the Sporkwitch is talking about Kamala Harris. If she had used the 25th Amendment, then she becomes directly associated with and responsible for the failed policies hurting her 2024 run. They needed to be able to blame Biden for everything. I mean,
but he was already running.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
What I mean, yeah, I'm going to say beforehand she could have, but we're talking about rerunning again, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
If it had happened earlier, then less of the policies would have been in place anyways.
I'm not sure that.
I don't know.
I'm not sure that she could have distanced herself enough.
I'm saying, like I said earlier, if she had cojones, man, and she was like, if she was as hungry for success and presidency as I think she is, she would have called for it like in 22 or 21 when she knew, and then she could have like took over and people would like love her because
honestly,
and she's a black woman, mixed lady.
I think that she would have had to have had a lot of intestinal fortitude to do that because I don't think the Democrats overall wanted that. So it would have been a fight.
Oh, sure.
There would have been a fight behind the scenes. I don't think that she would have gotten Nancy Pelosi's blessing. And again, because of who Kamala Harris is, I think that a lot of Democrats were like, look, you don't want President Harris, because I think it wasn't a secret that she didn't have the ability to make decisions in under pressure. She was afraid of making decisions, and so I do think that she might have put more effort into it if she had more more intestinal fortitude. But I don't know that she would have had the support from the Democrats that she would have needed. And that could have got really messy. So let's see. Eric B says, It would have been political suicide for Kamala. The 25th requires the rest of the cabinet to agree. They weren't going to give up their deep state kingdoms and would have destroyed Kamala for exposing them to the public. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like to try to, Monday morning quarterback stuff that I don't have a whole lot of insider info on, but I do think that it takes more than just one person invoking the 25th Amendment to actually make it, to follow through and actually remove the president. If the vice president can get like the Secretary of State on board, then, the Secretary of State can probably take the lead. The vice president could say, okay, we're going to do this. The Secretary of State can take the lead and be the person that's actually advocating for the vice president. So that way it doesn't seem like a naked power grab by the vice president.
Constitutional lawyer.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Section 4 of the 25th Amendment is what we're talking about. So the requisite is the vice president and a majority of the cabinet has to declare that the president at that point is unfit for office. Okay. So the vice president has to initiate it, but also that's one of those things of if you shoot at the king, you better kill him.
Yeah.
You're DOA at that point if you fail on it. But once again, I as I said, Kamala Harris did not do that because she knew full well that if she gave the American people a free sample of her presidency, they would take a look at that and just immediately say no thanks.
I mean, that makes sense what you're saying. Like, there's no way she didn't have the backing of the cabinet at all in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. There was one. There we go. This is the guy. Feed Jamie 1613 says, watching from the delivery room down under with my beautiful wife waiting on our third daughter, Miley. Keep up the good work, guys. Cheers.
Hoorah, brother.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Bravo. 3 is great to hear, and we wish you the best.
Only 7 more.
That's right. Let's see. Jacob Jones says, Phil, please tell me you watched him absolutely wipe the floor with Adam Knows Nothing today. Were you screaming at your phone like a psycho like me? I watched about half of it, and then I was like, all right, I have other things I have to do. I had to go pick up my car. It was being serviced.
You got through half? Man.
It was rough. It was
took
rough.
me like 20 minutes. I just couldn't do it, dude.
It was rough. Derposaurus Rex says, hey, Tim and Phil, when will we get a metal Timcast song? I know it's not your jam, Tim, but hey, trying out something else can be fun. I would really like to hear if Tim has a scream in them somewhere. That would be fun. I would like to know what the Tim Pool scream sounds like. Let's see. Soapy Enigma says, it seems y'all forgot the 8645 news cycle. No, I know it happened, but that doesn't mean that it would change my opinion. There was a bunch of shirts on Amazon that said 8645. So it's not that, it's not that we didn't remember. It's just that the contexts are different, in my opinion. And again, I'm not sure if
I wasn't paying attention back then.
Raymond
so I had no
articulated
idea.
it. But myself and Brett said that we don't think that he was actually saying that it was an actual call to murder. It was irresponsible and it was bad taste, and I don't have a problem with the Secret Service checking in to be like, hey, are you sure? And making sure. I don't have a problem with that at all. F Comey. But I don't think that it was actually a call for assassination. So nana boo boo. Let's see.
Oh, so yeah, Phil, I agree. He wasn't like, hey, go do this.
Yeah.
It was just like, I'm trying to be cool. Look at me.
Yep. Vash says, I don't care about the tax. The registration is a literal infringement on the Fifth Amendment. You are incriminating yourself if the government decides what you own is criminal. See the FRT chit. Yeah, 100%, man. Look, the worst thing about the NFA is the registration, is all the paperwork. I know it's easy for, people are going to be like, oh, what do you know? You're a rock star and you got a bunch of money, blah, blah, blah. Well, look, the $200 is, it's onerous to some people. But remember, when the $200 was initially instituted in 1934, it was equal to like $5,000. Okay, so it's significantly better now at $200. But all of it's unconstitutional. 6 ways to Sunday. So you're not. You're preaching to the choir here. I've been the guy that's talking about this stuff, as much as I can here on the show, because I think that the whole NFA should be abolished, and I mean, get rid of the ATF too. The FBI can do all that stuff. So let's see. Did you hear the feds are taking over Rikers Island? Court ruled the place is so bad it was ordered into receivership. Well, I didn't hear that.
Is that where they're going to put the people for Alcatraz?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I don't know, and I don't think Alcatraz is actually going to happen.
Yeah, that sounds nice. It's probably so much money to get that going.
Yeah,
back on again.
It would be hilarious.
I'm down. I'll spend some money on that.
Magnus Rex says, yo, Phil, did you listen to Sleep Token's new album? I actually started listening to them because you said they were making good stuff, and I must admit I am hooked. Yeah. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I've listened to the 3 songs that are that have been released, the 3 singles, and personally, I think they're great. I'm a big fan of Sleep Token. It's not everyone's thing, and if you're looking for like just breakdowns, don't go listening to Sleep Token thinking you're going to hear breakdowns, and don't think you're going to go hearing like Swedish thrash metal either. It's a totally different vibe. Personally, I think it's really, really cool. Vessel's a great singer, and I think that it comes through really well. Some people are really good singers, but they tune their vibrato out and they're overproduced and stuff. But Vessel, he's really subtle when it comes to any editing and stuff. It's really good. It's worth checking out. So
the guy's got a mask too, like
yeah. So and they've managed to keep their identity secret for I think three records now. Nice. There's a new band that just dropped a song called President, and they were wearing masks and they were supposed to be secret, and it literally dropped last night at midnight, and the dude that is president his name's already out. I don't know, I don't remember who he is, but like if you go on X you can find out. It was literally like 2 seconds, and if you're gonna wear a mask and try and keep it secret, like, and then you blow it, especially with all the hype because Revolver was talking about him, they had been pumping these guys since February, and they had a decent following on Instagram already, and they just totally blew it. So lame. Anyways, Ty Groot says, can't wait to buy some of Phil Z coffee. I'm not sure what that is. That's 2 weeks till Christmas. You can go pick that stuff up, and it's great. But that's going to wrap it up. So smash the like button. Share the show with your friends. You can follow me on X at Phil That Remains. I'm Phil That Remains on Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. TJ, would you like to shout anything out?
Yeah, I mean, so yesterday I announced that I am running for re-election for Kentucky State Representative. If you want to support the campaign, feel free to check me out at votetjr.com. Follow me on social media. I'm not going to do it on here, but if you do follow me on social media, I do put my personal cell number out there. So I will dox myself. I don't care. I believe in radical transparency, and politicians should be more aching to do that.
I believe in unlimited data plans.
Yeah, I do believe in unlimited data plans, and luckily my phone provider just ended their DEI program.
Nice. Great to hear.
Hey guys, Raymond G. Stanley Jr. here. I'm the resident blue collar here at Timcast. Also on shows, I'm not on the show. I have the best clips from the show that's on that night. So follow me on X at Raymond G. Stanley. Appreciate it.
Guys, if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram and on Twix at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. But what you should do is check out Pop Culture Crisis. Me and Mary are live Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. YouTube and now on Rumble. So if you are opposed to YouTube, you can subscribe to us over there. Hope to see you. Later, guys.
Check out clips all throughout the weekend. They will be posting all Saturday and Sunday, and then we will see you back here. Tim will be back Monday during the day, I'm pretty sure, to do the daily show, and then we'll all be back on Monday evening for another episode of IRL, and we will see you then.